Hi everyone, and welcome to Small Places Smart Mobility, this month's installment of the ongoing webinar series, Implementation and Equity 201, The Path Forward to Complete Streets. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar, co-hosted by the National Complete Streets Coalition and Transportation for America's Smart Cities Collaborative. My name is Robert Fox-Benner, and I am a Program Associate for Transportation for America, and the main project I work on is our Smart Cities Collaborative, and that is a learning and support network providing direct technical assistance to 23 communities across North America and 45 agencies within those. And what we primarily focus on are a lot of these new mobility, these smart mobility services that have been launched in the past decade or so. And so that's ride-sharing vehicles, that is car-sharing services, that's dockless bikes and scooters, microtransit vehicles, and what we really try to do is take an outcome-oriented approach with our communities to try to leverage some of the potential impact of these new services toward increasing access and increasing equity, towards additional economic opportunity, and to reducing congestion, reducing vehicle miles traveled, and reducing greenhouse gas emissions. And so we gather all of our participants who are high-level practitioners in these communities on a regular basis to really open source their experiences and their processes and discuss some of the challenges that they face in integrating these new services, discuss some of the successes that they've had, and work with them to help develop new policies and new pilot projects to really take advantage of some of their potential benefits. And so we are currently in the second year of this initiative, and I'd love to tell you a little bit about some of the main themes that we've been discussing this year that really get to the core of what these cities are focused on as they're thinking about a lot of these new tools and a lot of these new topics. And so those four that we've been focusing on this past year are design, measure, manage, and price. And I'll explain those briefly. With design, what we're really focusing on is coming up with strategies to really integrate a lot of these services into the right-of-way, and that's looking at new street design standards and new street design approaches, such as the implementation of transit lanes, of bike lanes, of electric vehicle infrastructure, and anything else that is needed to really integrate these services into the right-of-way. With measure, we are really thinking about a lot of the new data that's available for these communities with a lot of these tools, and coming up with strategies to really develop that data, manage that data, and then also set metrics for cities to assess the impact of these services and to understand how they're contributing towards their long-term goals and outcomes. When we think about managing, we're really thinking a lot about curb management strategies, as there's so much more demand on curb space from urban delivery vehicles, from ride-sharing vehicles, from other demands in that space. We work with cities to come up with new strategies to understand the impacts on the curb and to better manage it to contribute toward reduced congestion, toward increased safety and access as well. And lastly, we're also very focused on pricing. And with that, we're really thinking about pricing as a demand management tool to incentivize different travel behaviors and different transportation choices to, again, improve safety, improve access to opportunity, and improve and reach other long-term goals and outcomes. And so one of the things that we recognize as we have a lot of conversations with our communities and really are active in this space is that urban centers and large major cities are the ones that really get a lot of they get a lot of the press, they get a lot of the news, but rural areas often experience the most acute needs and are areas in which a lot of these services can have the greatest potential impact. Small towns with lower density, limited resources, and smaller populations often have to depend on cars as the sole transportation option. But there's the question of, if you don't have access to a car, whether it's because of price, age, or ability, how can some of these new services and how can some of these new tools help you get around and help enhance that access to school, to jobs, to healthcare, to anything else? And so Allen County, Kansas and Lone Tree, Colorado both have launched successful projects to bridge their own transportation gaps, and we're really excited to have them with us today to share their experience. So one person we'll be hearing from is Alyssa Reed, who is the Deputy Director for Outreach and Advocacy for Thrive Allen County. It's a nonprofit coalition that works to improve quality of life and economic conditions in Allen County, Kansas. Regier oversees all aspects of communications at Thrive, including social media, website, print, and radio, and is responsible for Thrive's statewide rural health advocacy network, Thrive Kansas. Prior to this role, Regier oversaw the Navigator program at Thrive from 2014 to 2018, building it into a regional force that has reduced the county's uninsured rate from 21% in 2013 to 9% in 2017. One of the biggest improvements in Kansas. Regier also coordinated all local communication following Allen County's successful pursuit of the 2017 Robert Wood Johnson Foundation Culture of Health Prize. The other individual we'll be hearing from today is Jeff Hallwell. Jeff Hallwell is the Economic Development Director with the City of Lone Tree, Colorado. Jeff has served in a variety of economic development roles throughout his 20-year career in the Metro Denver region, including Director of Business and Economic Development with the Colorado Office of Economic Development, as well as Chief Operating Officer with the South Metro Denver Chamber. In his role at the City of Lone Tree, he focused on legislative advocacy, transit and mobility, retail attraction, land development, and business recruitment for a growing transit-oriented and vibrant community in the Southeast Denver corridor. So I will turn it over to them in just a second, but a brief reminder that there will be a question and answer period after both speakers, and please submit questions in the chat box at the bottom left corner of your screen. And now I would love to turn it over to Alyssa.
Thank you, Rob. Hi, everyone. As Rob said, my name is Alyssa Reed, and I'm the Director of Outreach and Advocacy at Thrive Allen County. Before I begin, I first just want to thank Smart Growth for America and Transportation for America and the National Complete Streets Coalition for the opportunity to speak with all of you today on Thrive Allen County's Bike Share program. Before I get into the details of our Bike Share program, I do want to share a little background into Thrive and the community of Allen County, Kansas, in the hopes that this better illustrates for you the way that Bike Share could fit into your own rural communities. So I'm going to start off by giving just a quick geography lesson. Kansas, as I'm sure you're all aware of, is a Midwest state located in what we like to call the heart of the U.S. Allen County, Kansas, where Thrive is located, is marked by the blue star on the eastern side of the state that you can see on your screen. We have a population of 13,000 people spread out over 505 square miles. Allen County is in the southeast part of Kansas, an area that has often been referred to as the Appalachia of the Midwest. We tend to be poorer, less educated, and have much worse health outcomes than our counterparts in other areas of the state or of the Midwest. In 2007, a group of volunteers in Allen County got together and said they weren't okay with the trajectory of our county. They didn't like seeing the rampant poverty, the graduation rate dropping, or the lack of access to health care that our residents faced. They wanted to believe that tomorrow would be better than today. So they formed Thrive Allen County as a 501c3 coalition. Thrive began with focus areas of health and wellness, recreation, and education. A few years later, we added in economic development and advocacy. And our vision is that Allen County will be the healthiest rural county in the state of Kansas. We have a long way to go in this area. We've made progress, and that was highlighted by our being chosen as a Robert Wood Johnson Foundation Culture of Health Prize winner in 2017. But as of the last county health rankings released, we stand at number 84 out of 105 counties, basically solidifying that we all have our jobs here at Thrive for a very long time. So one of the ways that Thrive has gone about creating a healthier and more thriving culture in our community is through our built environment. Over the past 10 years, we've gone from 0 trails in Allen County to more than 27 miles of trails, and that number continues to grow. The immediate goal of our trails was to get more people walking and biking, but the longer-term goals are pretty ambitious. We want to improve our physical and physical health through more active lifestyles and the subsequent savings in healthcare costs and transportation costs that those active lifestyles bring about, as well as an increase in economic activity. The first trail system we built through all volunteer labor was the Southwind Rail Trail that you see pictured here. It opened in 2013, marking the beginning of a new culture of riding on trails in Allen County. The Southwind was such a success that at Thrive we decided we needed more trails and more unique and diversified trails. So we created another all-volunteer built trail system, the Lehigh Portland Trails, that opened in 2016. This particular trail system really opened up the floodgates of the biking culture in Allen County, so much so that later that year we were able to recruit a bike store out of Kansas City, which is located an hour and a half north of us, to open up a bike shop in Allen County, our first bike shop. So we were very excited about that. As we saw the bike culture grow, we knew we wanted to make it even easier for people to have access to our trails on more than just foot. We had talked about implementing a bike share program for years at Thrive, but we had not quite come up with the best model to move forward with that idea. Typical bike share systems like those found in metropolitan areas are expensive to set up and run. There's the cost of the bikes themselves, the docking stations, the kiosks, the payment systems, and staff. All in all, it can require an upfront investment of $4,000 to $5,000 per bike. That's far beyond the means of a small rural county such as ours. And even if we could secure the capital to launch such a system, our target audience, many of whom live in poverty with no access to the credit cards or smartphones that are often required for these systems, would still be unable to use it. So clearly we needed another model, and one more in character with our community and our community's needs. So what we settled on for our pilot project that we launched in May of 2017 was based on the bike library model, where bicycles are available to check out by the public for free, just as you would check out a book at your public library. We decided to use a single-speed cruiser-style bike, which is a great fit for the terrain in Allen County and also handles wear and tear better than bikes with multiple gears. As you can see in the picture, we have a very simple setup for our bike share stations. A simple frame that is bolted into the ground for our bikes to be locked up to, the establishment that the bike station is in front of, whether that be a retail store, a nonprofit, an industrial employer, a school, or a library, has keys for each bike, and riders check in and out by physically going into those organizations, which brings foot traffic into local stores and businesses, which they really appreciate. We utilize Google Docs for our checkout and in process and our tracking system, which makes our model very simple and easy to use, which is a plus when you are partnering with other businesses who need to easily be able to access and use the checkout system. When we piloted the Allen County Bike Share program, we had 10 bikes. 5 were stationed outside of our office at Thrive on the downtown Iola Square, and 5 outside of another retail store on the downtown Iola Square that was open on evenings and weekends when Thrive was not. We wanted the bikes to be available to out-of-town visitors who wanted to explore our town and trails by bike. We also wanted to have these bikes available for local community members who needed them for recreation or transportation as well. The checkout process is simple. The rider provides us with a photo ID that we can scan for our records. They sign a waiver and are loaned the bike for a 24-hour period. Children ages 12 to 17 must have a guardian signature to check out a bike. The first week we opened the Allen County Bike Share program, we discovered this would be so much more than we envisioned it to be. The expectation for most bike share programs is that out-of-town visitors will use them to check out trail systems and ride to explore your town, and that does happen. We have children check out the bikes for town scavenger hunts, as you see on the bottom right of your screen. We have residents check them out to go for day rides around our community, and we have out-of-town visitors check them out to explore or ride with family members that are visiting, who the family might have their own bikes but not enough to spread out with their visitors, so they borrow a bike share bike and show off our community. But what we learned very early on in the first week of opening our bike share program was that the reality of Allen County Bike Share was much more than Sunday bike cruising. It was a lifeline. The picture you see on your left was taken the first day of our Bike Share program. Those are Bike Share bikes outside of our federally qualified health center where residents go if they have no health insurance or are lower income and need health care. It's on the east side of town, and our bikes made it much easier for residents to make it to their appointments. On the right side of your screen, you can see the director of our Bike Share program, Kelly Frizzell, talking with an employee of our largest industrial manufacturer in Allen County, Gates Manufacturing. They employ just over 500 people. This gentleman was riding his bike to work when Kelly stopped him to ask a few questions since he was on a Bike Share bike. Gates has a Bike Share station outside of their factory. They have employees who either do not have vehicles or do not have reliable vehicles. This is an issue that is prominent among our residents in Allen County. This gentleman utilizes our Bike Share program to make sure he gets to work on time. The majority of our Bike Share users are like him. They are fry cooks at Sonic or McDonald's. They work in our local factories, many of which are 3 strikes and you're out tardy systems. So reliable transportation is a must. Some are residents that need an easier way to transport groceries or make it to a doctor's appointment or to the bank. And then there's Mark, a gentleman in his 50s whose Bike Share bike is pictured in the middle of your screen outside of the ER. Mark was a regular Bike Share user, and one evening he was at home with his niece when he started to feel sick. His niece encouraged him to go to the ER, but Mark said, no, I can't afford an ambulance to get me there. They had no vehicle for her to take him to the ER. As his symptoms worsened, his niece became more adamant. Uncle Mark, I think you're having a heart attack. You have to go to the ER. And again, Mark said he couldn't afford the ambulance. But then he remembered his Bike Share bike that was sitting on the front lawn. I'll ride my Bike Share bike there. Now, this is where I like to interrupt and tell everyone that we do not in any way, shape, or form encourage riding your bike to the ER. Please call an ambulance. That is the proper way to handle this situation. But Mark was adamant he would not use an ambulance, and so he did ride his Bike Share bike to the ER, where he walked in, presented himself, and said, I think I'm having a heart attack, and could someone please call Thrive and tell them that their Bike Share bike is here? This is a true story, and this is how much people love our Bike Share bikes. This man was having a heart attack, and still the second thing that he said when he walked into the ER was, please let them know where their Bike Share bike is. That picture you see is of Mark's bike before we picked it up. We like to say that our bikes literally save people's lives. Mark, for any of you wondering, is doing just fine. He recovered and is still a regular user of our Bike Share bikes. A few quick takeaways to share with you about our Bike Share program. We like to say that Bike Share is a win-win. We like to say it's sexy. The residents love it and benefit from it, and our funders love it. We were able to write grants to local health foundations after our pilot project was a success in order to build up our fleet of bikes and cover more towns within our county. We've worked with many other rural communities in Kansas to build their Bike Share programs, and they've been able to also write grants or find other sources of dollars to build their programs. Family foundations, community foundations, and individual donors are just a few other ways we've seen Bike Share programs come to life. As I said earlier, Bike Share is a way to introduce new people to your community, but more importantly, in small rural communities, it's a way to break down barriers that many residents face, especially in the area of transportation. For any of you that have community colleges or VOTEC colleges or four-year institutions in your community, Bike Share thrives in these environments. Our community college houses 10 Bike Share bikes that are constantly checked out, especially among our international students and out-of-town students without a vehicle. Bike Share appeals to out-of-town visitors, and you want it to. You want people excited to stay in your community because they have different ways of exploring your community and different modes of transportation they can utilize. You want them walking into your local stores to check out bikes because then they might get excited about what's in the store and they might shop more. But you have to make sure that they can access your Bike Share program, and this is where partnering with local retail stores or businesses that tend to be open later in the evenings and on weekends is very important. And the final takeaway is that you have to be flexible and able to evolve. Bike share works differently in every community. There are rural bike share models where every bike is donated and you can't tell when someone is on a bike share bike or a regular bike, and that may be what you're looking for. Or you might like our model where we partnered with a local bike store to keep our fleet recognizable. There are programs that charge anywhere from $5 to $25 a day for a late fee in order to keep people more responsible in taking care of the bikes. There are bike share programs that utilize long-term and short-term rentals. This is something we do, especially for trusted bike share users who are dependent on our bikes to make it to work. As you move forward, you'll learn what works best for you and your community. We continue to learn and evolve as we go through our own process. In the first year of our Allen County Bike Share program, we had our bikes checked out 565 times. We grew from 2 locations on the downtown Iola Square to 5 locations throughout the county, including in a town of 100 residents where they have 2 bike share bikes housed outside of their local library that are regularly used. We are continuing to expand and we are continuing to learn. There are riders who are no longer allowed to check out bikes due to mistreating them, but not as many as the naysayers told us there would be. We were told that people would steal our bikes, trash them, abuse them. Very seldom does this happen. For those who do mistreat the bikes, they are invoiced for the damage. If they can't pay the invoice, they can do community service that is valued at $10 an hour until they pay off their damage to the bike. We have gone with a system where our bike fleet is easily recognizable, pink, red, and yellow bikes. They're easy to spot. In fact, in the first week of launching our bike program, I had people texting me, Facebook messaging me, and calling me to tell me that so-and-so had a bike share bike parked outside of their own house. And I had to respond, that's okay, they're allowed to keep them overnight, but thanks for letting me know. The community is vigilant about these bikes, they appreciate them, and they're proud of them. Thrive has led so many programs and initiatives over our 10-year period, but our bike share program is by far one of our most recognizable, most loved, and most used programs. One of my favorite things about it is that we have been able to address, not fully, but in a very small part, an issue that has been haunting our community for years and that we're still working to figure out, and that's transportation. Our bike share bikes cost on average $400 per bike. We have a volunteer who does the maintenance on them, and we pay for the parts that are needed for that maintenance. To see our residents keep their jobs, make it to their doctor's appointments, enjoy our trails, and more easily get their groceries, all because we're able to provide a free rural bike share program for them, is a really wonderful feeling. And I am so proud every single time I see someone on our bike share bikes, and I see multiple people on them every day. Free rural bike share programs are one more piece of building a cycling culture in rural communities where bikes provide an easy, economical way to access services and break down barriers residents would otherwise encounter in their daily lives. And we highly encourage rural communities to look into creating your own versions of bike share programs for your communities. You won't be disappointed, and you might just save someone's life. Thank you so much for listening to me today, and I will take your questions at the end. And until then, I'm going to turn the presentation over to Jeff, who will talk with you about the City of Lone Tree's Link on Demand program.
Well, thank you, Alyssa. That's a tough act to follow. Very impressive, and I'm excited to hear the questions as well about bike share when we get to the end of this presentation. That said, I will transition this dialogue to microtransit and a pilot program that we've launched in the city of Lone Tree, Colorado, with the help of a lot of great partners, including Transportation for America. The microtransit program that we have taken on and run a pilot program for the last year is titled Link on Demand, powered by Uber. And you'll get why we have partnered with Uber in a few moments when we get to down the list of slides. But that said, I'd like to also give you some background about the city of Lone Tree. You can see on this map that we are located in the Metro Denver region. That graphic is a transportation map of Metro Denver. The city of Lone Tree is located at the southern end, the southeast quadrant of the Metro Denver region on I-25, and I-25 is the major north-south highway that runs from the northern to the southern edge of Colorado and is the major thoroughfare through the city of Denver. We also happen to be located on the Beltway, C470, which also creates a great location for transportation for the city of Lone Tree and brings our community basically at the corner of Main and Main on the southeast corridor of Denver. So transportation is in our DNA. However, you'll look at some of the demographics. We're actually not that big of a city. It's a suburban community. Our resident population is 15,000 people. However, our daytime population nearly doubles. We import multiple workers to our community at a retail location, at several primary employers, and other healthcare industries that basically double our population during the day, who then either leave via car or transit at the end of the day. We are also a growing community. I am using round numbers here, but within the next 30 years we expect significant population growth through construction to more than double our population by 2050. We expect about 35,000 people living here within the next 30 years. And what's really driving that is the last point here. The city of Lone Tree is on the southeast light rail corridor of the Metro Denver region. We currently have 2 transit stops, and we host the end-of-line station. However, as of spring next year, 2019, 3 more will open along the I-25 corridor within the city of Lone Tree, allowing our community with great fortune to have 5 transit stops on I-25 within the next 3 to 6 months. A few other things for background information, and what brought us here was a program that we launched in 2014 called the Lone Tree Link. Lone Tree Link has been our last mile solution to a last mile problem that we've experienced in the city for many years. Though we've had great access to light rail, any additional service has been fairly minimal beyond the light rail stations. So they've served park and ride, they've served those that are next to the station very well, but getting beyond the station has been a challenge. And Lone Tree Link was created to be a last mile program, which, as you can see here, has been a circulator of vehicles getting people from what you can see on the graphic on the north side, the Lincoln Light Rail Station, to several employment centers south of there via a shuttle service that operates with 3 vehicles, low tech, going around in a counterclockwise fashion with 10-minute headways. Though it's been low tech, it's been a great success. The employers that are listed here have significant ridership, and in the last year, we just completed our service year, and we had 85,552 boardings on that service. Since we launched the service in 2014, this has hauled 314,000 people, and we're currently at an average of 325 boardings per day. This is 99% last mile service, people coming to the community of Lone Tree, departing a light rail vehicle and finding their way to their employer via Lone Tree Link. There are some local rides, but it's traditionally last mile service. It's been a great use case, but we also were looking for other opportunities, and that's what led us to Link on Demand. So switching gears to opportunities, I mentioned that the Southeast Light Rail Extension, which is opening next year, will add 3 new stops to our community and create opportunities for growth and development. What you can see on this image is land that is planned and ready for business, housing, retail, and mixed-use growth along several light rail stations, and available in a great economic area of the city where we envision significant growth in the next 30 years. But we wanted to have it more, we wanted our transit system to address more than simply the last mile. The advent of TNCs and microtransit was really interesting to us because, though we've operated Lone Tree Link and we've been around other services that are fairly low tech, the advent of new tech was really inspiring. A neighbor to the north of ours, the city of Centennial, launched a pilot program with Lyft in 2016, which added additional inspiration. What they were trying to do was solve a last mile question with the use of Lyft as their partner to get people from a light rail station to the business and residential areas of the community. With a lot of that inspiration, we were also lucky to be a partner and become a partner in the T4A Smart Cities Collaborative, the Transportation for America group that was launched in late 2016. And I'll say it right here, we give a lot of credit to Transportation for America for what we've done. The folks that we've met, the inspiration we've received, and the education we've gathered has really led us to what I'm about to present. And that is Link on Demand. Link on Demand is using our fleet. We have an existing fleet of 5 vehicles that supported the Lone Tree Link. However, we decided to take one of those vehicles off of that circulator route and see if we could freelance it throughout the community and find a better way to get people around beyond that circulator route. At a T4A meeting, we met a person from Uber who is what really led us to this partnership that we've been able to launch. You can see from this photo here that we created this pilot program with Uber. That's our mayor presenting or cutting the ribbon in August of 2017. This pilot program with Uber, where we are using a 12-passenger vehicle, ADA and family friendly, and the whole point of it is using Uber's technology to dispatch rides on demand. So if you're familiar with Uber, you know that you select from where you're at, you select a destination to where you want to go, and call for a ride. When you're in the city of Lone Tree and you pick another location within the city of Lone Tree, Link on Demand is also one of the several choices you have to pick for a ride within the community. Uber was able to geo-fence our city as they can do with their technology, and a ride originating and ending in the city of Lone Tree can be one of your choices through the Uber application. So on demand, the driver, just like a typical Uber driver, will come pick you up at your house or at your place of business and take you to quite likely another business in our community or an amenity such as our library, rec center, or a park or other location that people want to arrive. It's been a great success. We did not expect that doing this as sort of bootstrapping a program could be such a great success. But with a partner like Uber, it really took off. We've done this just over a year, but as of August 2018, or September 2018, we've been able to achieve 14,268 rides with one vehicle operating on this program. It started out a little slow, but in August of 2018, we had 1,497 trips that people were taking, and we've risen that number to about 4 trips per hour. There's certainly a limit that one vehicle can do in a community of 10 square miles. That there's a geographic limit or just a size limit to where you can't get much beyond that. But we're very proud that they've reached 4 trips per hour, and as you can see here, about $15 a trip. Or a calculation that we've come up with, $11.53 a rider, and that assumes, and as we know, that not every trip is just one person, but the Uber's ability to pair rides or the vehicle's ability to take multiple people. can drive down the cost per trip. And most importantly, I want to share some of the lessons learned with all of this. We've, as I mentioned, been very lucky to partner with the preeminent rideshare company in the world, and that technology has brought us great opportunity. And what we didn't, I guess we should have expected this, but we really learned it when launching it and have continued to operate it. The technology is always evolving and great. There remains a human element to any shuttle program or really anything we do in life. The human element plays a big role in our success. Having a trained and available and friendly, customer-friendly workforce driving these vehicles matters greatly. Many of the missteps that have happened in the process have been typically human-related versus technology-related. And they're not necessarily, they've not necessarily been negative experiences, but just learning for the drivers initially just how to use a smartphone to dispatch a ride. It took some time. The kind of training it needed to get people used to that and to be inspired to provide the best customer service we spent far more time in that area than actually adapting to the technology, making sure that we were able to train and operate a program with people driving these vehicles. Another lesson learned was pairing and shared rides. The whole concept of Uber and Uber Pool is that using optimal routes and with Uber Pool pairing rides, you have the ability to really maximize or make more efficient your ability to pick people up and drop them off. The pairing one is one that we're still working on and perfecting, but it definitely increases efficiency. The shared rides with the same thing, we've learned that there are great ways to share rides and not. If a vehicle is going north and the person that's requesting it next wants to go south, it's been very challenging to share a ride. People tend to need to be going in the same direction. And what I'm getting to here is, oftentimes one vehicle is not necessarily adequate to deal with all of the pairing and shared ride needs you'd have, because people are going in different directions when working on demand. Pickup points. Over time, we've been able to identify some of the most popular locations where people want to be picked up or dropped off, and through that, it really improved our efficiency when we figured out how to create located pickup points for individuals or at shopping centers or at locations of business. Especially in multifamily developments or neighborhoods, for a lot of time has been lost. Entering that development, driving around, looking for the rider, when just a couple hundred yards might make the difference between many minutes lost on the trip. So we've created pickup points in many of our neighborhoods or at our local mall, Park Meadows Retail Resort. There are 3 or 4 pickup points where people tend to go, which has created efficiency. One versus multiple vehicles. I somewhat addressed it, but we have done tests. We started out this pilot with one vehicle, but on a couple of occasions, and one most recently a month ago, we were able to add a second vehicle to the fleet. Simply turn on a second app that a second driver was able to access, and without any advertising whatsoever, just turning another app on, we nearly doubled the ridership of this program within a month, and that was fascinating to us, as there really is demand there. Even the application itself creates an intrinsic demand that people know that they have access to transit and can find it with technology. And even without advertising, the demand was able to pick itself up, and we were able to serve it with 2 vehicles. But beyond the demand itself, as I mentioned before, the efficiency of it was much better as well. If someone was going, if one vehicle was going north, a second one could pick up those that were looking to find their way to a southern end of the city. And one final note I'll mention, and then some thoughts. The intracity versus last mile. I mentioned previously that our Lone Tree Link program was very efficient at addressing a last mile problem in our community. What we didn't know what to expect, but have certainly learned, is that this the use of on-demand transit has been much more popular in the intracity kind of use than last mile. People have been wanting to. Our primary user is not someone coming from somewhere else and trying to get to their place of work, or vice versa, from their house to a light rail station. It's much more popular to be using to get from their home to the store, or from their home to school or the library, or another location throughout the day. So it's an intra-city ride versus a last mile ride, and we've learned that there's definitely a demand for that, even in a less densely populated area than downtown Denver. And then my final thought is we when beginning this project felt like pioneers. We did a lot of work trying to find folks, and many of you may be on the line that are in this business, the technology business, because certainly myself and our city manager, Seth Hoffman, are not technologists. We were looking for the technology, and lucky to find Uber in the process. But there didn't seem to be a lot out there that had begun addressing these microtransit through technology in a big way. Since this has happened, we have certainly learned that a lot of people have entered this market. There are traditional providers, as well as new software or app development companies that have come to market, and you may know some of the names that are now providing it in communities across the country. And what I'm trying to say here is that there's really a lot of opportunity for communities like ours today to duplicate what's happened in the city of Lone Tree, and we think that on-demand transit through technology is a growing trend, and we'll be seeing it in cities across the U.S. coming soon. So I will also answer questions at the end of this presentation, and we really appreciate the opportunity to be part of this webinar, and thank you for listening today. And with that, I will turn it over to Heather to add some concluding remarks, and look forward to the continued dialogue.
Thank you very much, Jeff. Hi, everyone. This is Heather Zucchero. I'm a program manager here at the National Complete Streets Coalition. And first, I just want to say thank you so much to both of our presenters for sharing your experiences with us today. And thank you to all of you for the great questions. We have quite a few, more than we'll have time to get to in the next 10-15 minutes. But I do just want to reassure you, we are recording this webinar, and we'll be publishing the full recording along with some bonus Q&A for questions we don't get to today on our blog within about a week or so. Stay tuned for that. You'll get an email when it becomes available. And with that, we're going to launch right into questions. And the first question is by far the most popular. To both of our presenters, many people tuning in here today wanted to know a bit more about how you funded these initiatives. Was this something that came out of city or county budgets? Did you have partners from the private sector or federal money involved in launching these initiatives, as well as the ongoing maintenance costs?
Jeff, do you want me to jump in really quickly? I feel like ours is much easier to talk about funding probably than yours. And for the bike share program, we started with, we are mostly grant-based at Thrive. We're more than 80% grant funded. And we did have some undesignated dollars. And I did see one of the questions pop up. It was, what was the initial cost of our bike share program? It was $5,000 to start with the 10 bikes and the 2 stations. And so that got us launched with undesignated funds that we used. And then after that was successful, we were able to to write for grants to health foundations within the state of Kansas to continue to fund our program.
And all for Lone Tree Link, there's been an evolution of funding to our traditional program that I mentioned, the Link Circulator, was a true public-private partnership. The city was a 1/5 contributor to the program. The rest of the revenue came from the partners that you may have seen on that previous map. The business community that was needing last mile service were also great contributors to that program, and I probably should have mentioned that previously in the webinar. They've each been a 1/5 contributor to it. Those include Charles Schwab, Skyridge Medical Center, what is now CenturyLink. It was Level 3 Communications, and the Metro District they're part of. At one point, Kaiser Permanente was part of it, and our local transportation management authority, the Denver South TMA. Those entities help serve as this public-private partnership, and initially, that since the city and all these entities were part of a partnership, the pilot program of Link on Demand was able to be supported through that budget, since the city was a partner to it as well. As we move to the future of pure Link on Demand, or pure on-demand transit, we do have to transition that model. There will be continued city support of that program, so city general funds. However, we've secured a grant from our local air quality, the Denver Regional Air Quality Council, that supports these types of programs that will get people thinking about air quality and out of their cars. We are seeking other types of public or grant funding that is related, that we know is out there. And then finally, we've resisted this because we had partners, but as we move to the future, there's a great opportunity with big advertising rolling around the city on a vehicle, looking for sponsorship and advertising revenue as well. One thing we have resisted is the as long as we can is and since these are microtransit rights, is charging for that service. We think that helps drive demand, and we wouldn't really, in a fare box situation, I don't think we'd make much money relative to what we need to run it. So that's the basic model. Actual operating costs are I think, relatively smaller than you think, to run a 12-passenger vehicle, and you can scale it based upon the size of your community. We have found this to be much more cost-effective than other things the city has to do to keep its streets paved, but beyond that, expanding roads and building intersections. Those can get quite costly, and running transit is actually on scale smaller than a lot of those projects.
Thank you both for those answers. Alyssa, our next question is for you. You spoke a little bit about some of the barriers you faced. For example, you mentioned vandalism, but we've gotten quite a few questions about other barriers that communities have faced around the country when launching their bike share programs. For example, declines in ridership during winter months and concerns about safety, particularly if there's not already a robust bike network in place. So my question is, have you encountered any other barriers or resistance to your program? And if so, how have you overcome them?
Though I saw the winter question go up, we in Kansas, it can get snowy, it can get icy, and our numbers do go down just a little bit, but people still need to get to where they're going, and if bikes are the only way they're going to get there, they're still going to use them. So our program does have fewer riders in the winter, but not by a lot, and we are currently working, actually at the college this week, we are putting in a protector over the bikes, a bike share shelter that will house the 10 bikes that are out there to make it to keep our bikes lasting longer. So we're excited about that. Other barriers, I think one of the questions that came up, and maybe it'll come into this question that I'm trying to answer for you now, was about vandalism or theft, and then also fees for people not bringing a bike back. So the way that we do that, we don't charge a $1 fee per day, but after 3 days, if someone has not returned the bike, we start calling them. And if they do not return the bike after that, they get an invoice that is the cost of the entire bike, which is $400, and we have yet to not have someone bring it back. After they get an invoice for $400, they bring the bike back. If they lose the lock or the chain or the key, it's a $40 fee that they have to pay. But the bigger issues that we thought we'd face with vandalism and people stealing the bikes really haven't been, it's not that it's never happened, but it has not been the issue that people were concerned it would be. And so I hope that answered some of it, some of the questions there.
Thanks, Lissa. And Jeff, the next question is for you. People are curious about some of the data. So people are wondering, do you have statistics on how long people have to wait to be picked up by Link on Demand, or how many of the rides begin and end at transit stops? So more broadly, I'm wondering, what, if any, data is Uber sharing with you as part of this partnership?
That's a great question. I could get into a lot of the specifics, but I think I'll start with the bigger picture. We agreed at the beginning with Uber that they, of course, have a lot of, are a private company with lots of proprietary needs, and we didn't get into the nitty-gritty with them about we didn't let our differences and needs of data get in the way of coming to an agreement. They share with us some ridership data, but a lot of the stuff that they have is not shared. And we learn anecdotally several things. For example, the drivers that operate these vehicles are our drivers, so we know where they're going, where they go the most and the least, and that kind of data can be recorded by us. So we know that I'd say about 10% of rides are at a transit station, whereas we found that about 40% of rides were originated at our at the local mall, Park Meadows Retail Resort, and then trending back from that, the top 5 locations are all retail locations in the city. For a city like us, who is a sales tax driven, we have no complaints about our community accessing the retail sites. That said, the data that we've been able to gather has been sufficient for us to operate the service. A few things that we'd like to have are beyond the data itself. Because we're working with a private party, we don't necessarily know who's using the service or not, so we can't communicate directly with them. That has good and bad. And when we want to communicate, it's basically with service maybe down for a couple hours because for some reason it would be very convenient. But we also know that they are Uber's customers, not completely ours. But I guess I'll get back to my first comment. Doing this pilot program, we didn't want to stop our need to deliver service from happening, because we were really insistent on having data. We wanted to provide service versus be a data lab. I'll get at that.
Thanks, Jeff. And we just have time for one more question. Again, there were so many great questions that we didn't get to. Don't fret, as I mentioned, we'll send these to our presenters and answer some more of them for our recap blog post. But our last question is for both presenters. Specifically, what are you doing to communicate about these services, both to people that live in your community, or, for example, if somebody comes and visits, how might they learn about the option to either use bike share or Link on Demand to get around?
So for the bike share program, we at Thrive have a very strong Facebook page, and the community is very good at following it. So we launched our program via Facebook and our website, and then word of mouth just spread it around like wildfire. We've been on local news stations with it, and we make sure to promote it constantly on our social media sites. So people are reminded about it, and especially when we open new locations or we see people out riding, we try and capture that. And then other communities have learned about it. One, we work through a Blue Cross Blue Shield contract with some communities in Kansas where we've been able to share this model with them. And so in doing so, the word has spread that we have this bike share model, and so we've worked with other communities to share that as well. But mainly in our community, it's word of mouth and the fact that we have bikes that stand out, and so people ask about them and ask how to check them out.
From Lone Tree's perspective, we of course do all the traditional marketing, social media marketing, events like this, our city newsletter, and every other possible way we can get the word out, and our existing ridership of the Lone Tree Link. We have a dedicated audience there as well. However, I think our best marketing vehicle has been twofold. One, word of mouth. Someone has a great experience and tells their neighbor. But second, the wonderful partnership that we have with Uber. I can't thank them enough for taking a leap of faith with us. They, everyone, Uber shares a great piece of real estate in the world, and that's space on your iPhone. And they are on millions of iPhones across the world, and the ability to be integrated in that has really led us to access as well. When people in Lone Tree are using Uber, they can see us as an option. They advertise through Uber that the service is available. So having Uber as our partner has really led to directly people will find that may not know that this program exists, but find it while they're seeking a ride through an existing TNC. So we think that alone has probably led to, we don't know the data, but led to a significant number of rides that are using the service.
Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in today. Thank you especially to Alyssa and Jeff for the amazing work that you're doing and for taking the time to share your experiences with us. As I mentioned, we'll be publishing a recap blog post sometime in the next week. That'll include a PDF of today's presentations, a full recording of the conversation, and some additional questions and answers. Look for an email from Ready Talk letting you know that that's available. We'll also be continuing our monthly webinar series. We expect to announce the date soon, but our next topic in December will be a deep dive into the Institute of Transportation Engineers Guide to Context-Sensitive Design on Multimodal Thoroughfares. So stay tuned for that as well. Again, thanks so much for taking the time to join us. We hope to see you at future installments of the series. And from the whole team here at the National Complete Streets Coalition, thank you so much and have a wonderful rest of your day.